Good morning, viewers, and welcome to a special edition of the Economy and Politics Show. It's October 1st, 2020, the first day of the new month of October, and also Nigeria's 60th anniversary, if you would like to call it our Diamond Jubilee. On this very special edition, we have a conversation on reflections on Nigeria at 60, looking at the areas of corporate leadership. We have someone who has, over the years, been an example of great leadership, mentorship, and has brought, in his own way, transformation to the country, to the definition of the brand which he leads. Mr. Foluso Phillips is the chairman of Phillips Consulting Limited, Africa, a well-known company that has led to transformation of organizations across the country. He was the immediate chairman of the Nigeria Economic Summit Group and is currently the chairman of the Nigeria South Africa Chamber of Commerce. He served in several boards and still serving, and is one leader that you could call a statesman who believes in the uniqueness of Nigeria, its industrious nature, and its ability to fulfill its destiny as a leading light in Africa and across the globe. It's a privilege to have him today to lead this conversation and welcome him on the show. Nice to have you, Mr. Foluso Phillips.
Thank you. Morning, Otto. Nice to have you too, and happy Independence Day to you.
Yes, you too.
You know, this morning when I woke up, just reflecting, I was 7 years old on when we were celebrating our independence, and I remember that period very, very well. But what even stuck in my mind was these little flags they were used to carry, tiny, tiny flags, green, white, green, that were all waving when we were given in school. But nice to reminisce. Well, good morning, everybody. Yeah.
Yes, nice to reminisce. And I must admit that there's this trademark you're known for, which is the bow tie. I think there are very few corporate leaders that used to put on this bow tie. Former Central Bank Governor of Nigeria, Mr. Sanusi Lamido, has always had this bow tie as former managing director of First Bank of Nigeria, and then being the Central Bank of Nigeria governor. And of course, Professor Ajayi, so that I mean that stands you out also, and it's good. You kept that consistently, which brings me to the area of taking us through your life's journey. I mean, you talked about it, 7 years, you were 7 years when Nigeria attained its independence. How has it been, your life's journey? I mean, what has been those significant moments for you as it reflects into our national developments?
I think probably the fact that one has been able to transit, you know, going through education, a good educational system. My secondary school was Igobi College, and certainly nowadays it was one of the primary major secondary schools in the country at the time, a missionary school. And there were quite a few of us that went through a system where education was taken very, very seriously. And a lot of people from these schools went on to university and went on to lead the country, with many seniors ahead of us. And I think what has been more impactful for me has been when I started Phillips Consulting. It seems as if whenever I reflect on my life, it's my life with Phillips Consulting, which by the way we'll be celebrating our 28th year anniversary tomorrow.
Oh, congratulations in advance.
28 years of Phillips, and I remember it was the 2nd of October 1992 that we started, and that's the story for another day. But
yes.
But I think that it's that period in my life whereby I knew that I was actually acting a lot of value, extremely challenged, a huge growth area. Having to sort of run your own enterprise, not producing things, but providing a service, and being a bit of a trailblazer from being an indigenous small company that had to compete with the larger established companies, doing things in an area that was still relatively new in terms of management consulting, which fortunately I had spent about 6-7 years doing in the United Kingdom with Coopers and Lybrand before I came to Nigeria and started Phillips Consulting. So I think in my life, where you think of your life in secondary school, your life in university, your life building up your skills and competencies that gave you the right to set up a consulting firm and say that I have enough for now to be able to advise other organizations and act as a consultant. Up to today, where thankfully enough, one is now moving to the fourth stage, if I can say that, of succession and transformation, and moving on to other things and ensuring that the organization itself still continues. So I think the Phillips consulting years were the ones that have been most significant for me. Bear in mind that the years before that prepared before that role, and something that I'm always glad to talk about.
Yes, and one thing that is always emphasized for a nation and even across the globe, people look at people that have values. You know, strong values are very for citizens. For you, what were those forming blocks for your values that you have today, which I mean stands you out to, from your home to school, and even in where you started working before you formed the Phillips Consulting brand?
I think you really started it from the home, without a doubt, and that's why families are extremely important in nation building. When I think about my home, the way we were raised at home and the way my parents were raised, going back to very, very traditional values and very, I must say, Christian values. Um, and I think it's probably the Christian values which was literally knocked into our head more by my mother, as you can always imagine, than my father. But a family that pray together, that recognize the role of God in our lives, right from a very, very early stage. And going into a secondary school, it was a missionary school whereby the same principles applied. And the fear of God was just the fundamental thing, which helped to keep everybody in the straight and narrow path, knowing that there was always a superior being that was watching over you and keeping an eye on you on one hand, but on the other hand, demanding that you behave in such a way to deserve to be looked after. And that's the way I looked at my life growing up, knowing that you cannot go on your knees and pray for God to protect and help you if you're not acting in a way that is deserving of that protection. And that sort of carried one through. And I think the ultimate test for me came when I left the shores to go and study university. And I was literally on my own. The school wasn't there, my parents weren't there. And you're free to do whatever it is you wanted to do. And my initial mental reaction was that, freedom. But you find out that there's just some things that have been drummed into you from your early stages in life, from age of 3, 4, 5, that no matter how you try to misbehave, you just find there's something that's telling you, that innermost mind, that look, this is wrong. And people say that the thing about all this is to appreciate the difference between right and wrong. And the decision you take, let it not be a blind decision. So when you're doing something wrong, know that you're doing something wrong and therefore be ready to face the consequences, as opposed to some people who don't appreciate when they're doing things wrong. They just think it's a normal thing to do this. There's nothing wrong with this, and they go ahead and do it. So these are the things that have piled up over the years to help one to determine and influence one's values, and especially respect for other people, appreciating the importance of people, a very strong sense of empathy, which has been one of my own major guiding principles. I always say to myself, if I was the person that I'm talking to, how would I feel? What would I be thinking of? What would I expect? And how can I be fair? And how can I be equitable in my decisions, such that there's comfort, a comfortable relationship that ensures that relationship can therefore be consistent. Sometimes people let you down, but that's as a result of their own background. But you must learn to be able to rise above it and appreciate where they're coming from, the problems that they have, and how you have to learn to accommodate these things. And that also has translated into running an organization. I think the principal thing about the Phillips consulting story is that we put our people first. We're a people-focused organization. When people say we are HR, not necessarily HR, but just people-focused. And the major things about us was to try and pay attention to our people, develop our strengths, and know that
the PCL Africa brand. I mean, 1992, not many
not
Nigerian
many
brands
Nigerian
were there
brands
that
were
could
there
give you
that
that
could give you
inspiration to
that
say, okay,
inspiration to say,
I want to
okay,
start
I want
this.
to start this.
You're
And
always looking at the global brands, and you want to compete and create value. How was it in building this brand, and over the years, all the challenges and the stepping stones that you can reflect back on and say, yes, this was a great move that was made?
I think the PCL brand itself, uh, I think it's come out of a very basic principle that I started off with, which I think had helped us tremendously. Um, my vision for Phillips, or PCL as we call it now, was never to be the leading consulting firm, to be the richest consulting firm, to be the number one consulting firm. It really wasn't, because in those days competing with it was Arthur Anderson and Coopers and Lybrand and so many other Pricewaterhouse, and we were coming in as very, very small boys in the game. But what I started off with, I said I just wanted to build an institution that would outlive me. That was just the fundamental thing. And it happened to be a consulting practice. And I said, I need something that will outlive me. And therefore, the actions that we're going to take, the focus, the alignment of all the various activities was geared to saying this organization must sustain itself. It must be there long after each and everyone was gone. And that was always the story I told to anybody who joined. I said, look, our primary mission is to make this company outlive all of us. And for that to happen, it means it needs to be successful and all those other things that come into play about being financially stable and and uh, and offering valuable services that people were ready to pay for. But I think that as a foundation was so strong, and it helped us in the way we structured the organization and the way we ran it, and focused in building what I call an institution that would outlive us. Of course, there were stronger values that came on after that in terms of saying we wanted to be world class. And the thing about being world class is that it's a moving target. What is world class today will not be world class tomorrow, and it wasn't yesterday. And so we were permanently chasing this moving target. But after a few years, you look back and you find out that you've moved a few inches. You look back, you find you've moved a few miles. And in pursuing that, we were able to sort of be comfortably move ahead. So for me, it was an organization that would outlive us. It was being world class in all the things we were doing. And then, important of all, we said that our primary business focus was just to focus on people, trying to develop the competence and capabilities of people to work with phenomenal systems and processes that will just make their organization meet what customers require, which is meeting the expectations and hopefully exceeding it. And these are very, very basic principles. Of course, below all this layer were all your products and services and initiatives and various moves, but being guided, knowing that you just have to have a very strong family unit as an organization that wants to continue to succeed itself from one generation to another. And that I think those are the fundamental things that help to build the brand today. We've had a lot of people go through the firm. We've got a huge alumnus, and you look around and there's so many people that I can look at today with great pride of sort of being having passed through Phillips. But not only that, but still remembering the Phillips Consulting story, still building on the Phillips Consulting brand, still building on what it is that Phillips Consulting has done to their lives, even post working in Phillips Consulting. So many people, some that I don't know. And of course, what is even more interesting is the impact that we've had on people that we've served, organizations that we served. I run into people and they tell me that, we remember so many years ago you did this and you ran this program, or you had this session, or you did this strategy. And because they're all part of a crowd, you don't always remember the faces, but they've all grown up to be big boys and big girls. I know quite a few bank MDs today who went through the school, who went through our system. I'll say very, very proudly so. But the point is, yeah, we're still standing, and we've survived. And I must say also on issues about integrity, it really has helped. Sometimes we think Sometimes we felt it's been a bit painful when you don't get some jobs and because you don't do certain things. But like my late father says, he's always said to me, stick to the straight and narrow. And I tell people this: stick to the straight and narrow because it will always come to bite you. It will always come. He said it's not a curse, but if you don't do the right thing, you will pay the price. Always, it always happens. And these things have been the values we've kept, and it's helped to build a brand and help people to come into our organization. I can tell you a lot more, but let's go.
Definitely. I mean, when I was listening to the speech of the president today, he was talking about the biggest resource Nigeria has is people. And looking at what you've talked about today, people, I mean, people skills, people development. Phillips Consulting, without that, has set that pace for organizational transformation activities in the country. And even through your activities, other companies, consulting indigenous companies have sprung up and taken a lead from what you've done. How would you describe your role in anchoring that in Nigeria? I mean, it's really a great pioneer role you've played in that regard.
Yeah, I think we mustn't forget, and this has been tried very fair, that we haven't been the only consulting firm. We're not the only consulting firm that's been around. I know that clearly we might have made visibly more impact, I will say. Uh, Maybe not even financially. I can think of a few other smaller consulting firms that probably were financially better off than we were. Well, certainly in terms of the impact and the value to society, the broader society, yes, I think I will put my hand up and say yes, we've been able to do that. Um, the other organizations, we've given birth to quite a few. I must admit, people that have left us to go and set up their own, and I've always learned very, very early, even though painfully, not to worry or quarrel or be angry with people that left us to go and do something else.
That's
Because
a good
after
one.
yeah, after 28 years now, you look back and you say that I look at them with pride. And I say these are the outputs or the children of Phillips Consulting, and whether they're competing or not, it really doesn't matter, because when we get elevated to the level where we too can produce people to for society into the system, then we are operating at a different level. So crying and moaning and groaning when people left after so much training and investment, for me is not the way. It's how we got to contribute to the ecosystem, and I continue to make the Nigerian system work. So there are other organizations, and for us, we've just carried on. We've been very focused. We've been very consistent. We also started off with a clear product focus, which was about quality, about management systems, about delivering good service. I think I think clearly that people focus and systems focus, process improvement, all those things, they were so key to us, especially when we started off with the banking industry, which
Mm.
has really done very well. I think it helped us also choosing the right thing. I must admit, the first 2 months of starting Phillips, the orientation was towards trying to be a financial type consulting firm because of my background
Mm.
as an
Yes.
accountant and sort of
Mm.
worked as a financial controller in different organizations and stuff, things of that nature. But I
Mm.
realized very quickly through various interactions that that was traditional. To go in a different direction of focusing on people was not very popular at that time. It was all about hardcore, nitty-gritty consulting work of finance and numbers and figures and things of that nature. But we went in a different direction. So that gave us a bit of a niche in the area. Um, and like I said, there were other firms as well, but we just came up with it is what it
Just,
is.
yeah, definitely. I mean, it's quite remarkable what has really happened from uh, what you've described, life's journey, the values, uh, pioneering this, and of course, the impact it has made, particularly the alumnus. You have a very rich alumnus. But let's look into Nigeria, because one area you raised, which has been remarkable, is the human capital. I mean, you've also contributed in terms of organizational transformation, people skills. talked about secondary school. I mean, Ibubi is a great secondary school. You have the vice president as alumnus. You have the likes of Professor Koinsola Jai as an alumnus. Even in Christian leaders like Pastor Paul Adefar. So education is very critical for nations. Investing in education and
You see, let me just say, countries have phenomenal resources, and we have phenomenal resources in oil, but we never learn to beneficiate our oil, and therefore we are paying the price today. We have phenomenal resources in minerals, you know, gold, diamond. People say that this whole country is just blessed with so many different minerals. And I was in a conversation with somebody the other day, and he was telling me things that I didn't even know about, even as far away as Sokoto, having phosphate and a lot of things. So we have all these things. We haven't learned how to beneficiate them. Another thing that we have in large quantities is people. And again, we're doing the same mistake we've always done before. We haven't learned the art of beneficiating people. And how do you beneficiate people? By educating them, by making them phenomenal individuals, pumping them with knowledge, wisdom, capabilities, competencies. And we just haven't done that. And again, that is why if you have huge resources, you must beneficiate these resources to make them valuable. Okay, our oil is crude. Well, when it turns into petroleum products, they become valuable. And I think that's the first lesson we've got to have as a fundamental foundation. But having said that, you look around you all over the world, the countries, the developing countries that have turned around, India, even China, you know, South Korea, Hong Kong, Malaysia, all these countries. You go back to 1956, the time when Nigeria was having its independence, and we were all supposed to be at par. And yes, education was very key to all of us then. All these countries have carried on with their own educational programs, consistently so, for the last 40, 50 years. Consistently, they focus on education, especially India. I mean, there's an article I read recently whereby a list of about maybe 50 companies in the United States, and they will look at all the CEOs, COOs, and they were all Indian origin. They become American Indians, but a whole long list that I just never imagined. And I said to myself, that's because India invested in education. And not only did it send its children, so to speak, to the United States, but there's still a huge population that was left behind in India. There was learning, and training and getting educated. And of course, China did its own with military precision. It's almost like, pardon me saying, so beat the child if you don't learn, because they don't compromise. And they've done that. Malaysia, the same thing. And so you find out that the education, educating our people is so fundamental. And it's not about physics, chemistry, biology, but just educating them about so many things, learning to use your hands, learning skills, appreciating craftsmanship, appreciating the fact that I'm a plumber does not mean that, you know, I shouldn't have a successful life, or a car mechanic doesn't mean I shouldn't have a successful life. Everything has got value, and having people teaching them to take pride in their work. So, you know, so the ability to have this, getting our country for our people to look at education and having an educated population is very fundamental. And the key thing for me is that no educated population would have their votes bought by 1,000 naira. No educated person in Nigeria, whereby you are educated. I'm not saying first degree in physics, mechanics, or anything, just you are very educated
in the widest sense of the word. If you are educated, nobody will come and offer you 2 loaves of bread to get the vote. And so you are more learned in deciding who it is that you will follow as a leader to lead you on. And even though you're a market woman, but you're smart, you're sensible, and you're saying to yourself, well, you know what? I can see what's going on around me. I can see and feel the pressure in my life. Is this person I'm going to put into power to help me, to lead me? Is this person going to do it? And if I'm educated enough, certainly I would not be pampering to getting bread and rice and all those things to buy my vote. Well, that's just, that's just taking it at that level. I think without a doubt, we have to resolve the issue of education. Somebody's challenged me and said, yes, you're talking about education, but there are thousands and thousands of people that don't have jobs. And I said, yes, that is very, very true. There are loads of people that don't have jobs. But let's not just look at today. Let's look at what has led us to that situation. Because if we had been consistent with education and good quality education, and education that is fit for purpose, what do we need to develop our skills and competence in so that we can train our children to go and have that capability? I mean, it's always so alarming when they say that when you're building your homes, the best plasterers are people from Cotonou and the people from Ghana. And I'm saying that, look, there's a whole range, millions, literally millions of different types of jobs that we need people for, we need resources for. But if you don't, if all the people we're educating them to work in manufacturing, and we don't have the manufacturing plants, then there's no work for them. But at the moment, we don't have people in that area. Let me tell you another thing that has happened that I sort of discovered. During the time from the 90s right through to the early 2000s, was a period of globalization. And the whole concept of globalization was just a distribution of a manufacturing process. Let me put it crudely. You give me the raw material, I give you the plant and equipment, and you give me the labor, and I'm using different people at different countries based on costs of production to participate in this global production of goods and services. And that's what happened to America or the Western world, whereby India, Asia generally had people that were capable of doing these things. And they pushed all what I call the blue collar work, all the production, heavy metal work, they pushed that to Asia. So China in the process got better and better at doing it. Malaysia got better and better at doing it. India got better and better at doing it. And they just learned. And because they participated in that global activity, they uplifted themselves and they became capable. Africa generally did not participate in that. There was no globalization activity that came to Africa at the time, and there was no call for it. The economies in Africa were not really shouting for that because we were living on oil revenues, cocoa revenues, and all the other types of income that was just rental income. And so there's nothing to encourage you to try to look into producing. It was easy for us to just trade. So these things are very, very fundamental in what do we develop skills of our people for to meet these things. If there was a huge demand for we need production people, and they're not available, then we begin to produce them and say, look, a child will go to school and say, I want to go into production engineering, I want to be a great mechanic, I want to be a great factory producer working on the assembly line. And that is where my capability is up to. But I can wake up in the morning, I know I've got a job. But there's no demand for that. We were just traders. We're just trading. Loads of foreign exchange from oil, bring the goods in, and therefore we are the greatest traders literally in the world. We know how to trade and we know how to hustle. But that's a long story about education and why and how we've gotten it wrong. But I think it can be fixed. Just one more thing, in the sense that the world will push the Western world pushed out the blue collar work. Now they're pushing out the white collar work. What do I mean by white collar work? All the digital type of skills. And lo and behold, we are stepping up and trying to participate in that. And so outsourcing of digital skills as outsourcing of production skills is happening now, and we're stepping up, but we're not stepping up fast enough. But it's a great opportunity because it's a level playing field. It's something that's totally new to everybody. And we don't, again, want India or China to have too much of a lead, even though they do have. But that's an opportunity for us to step into and see how we can develop an economy that is very, very digital in nature. And therefore, we have to start aligning the things we do towards that in terms of broadband and the kind of what we teach our children in school, the way our children learn. And COVID has been a wonderful thing. I know for now it's destabilized us, but COVID will teach and help to show that we can teach our children at scale. If we can invest the amount of money we would put into infrastructure, raw infrastructure for schools, and we can invest it into a digital infrastructure where one teacher sits in class to teach about 30, 40 kids. Now one teacher can teach 3,000 kids because we've got the digital infrastructure to do it. It's a huge mind shift and change in paradigm that we have to put in place, whereby we say, how can we educate our children? And don't forget, a child that begins to learn today and is learning on an iPad doesn't have to unlearn anything. I grew up as a child, this child, you're born and all you see is an iPad and that's your world. It's we older people that are trying to convert from paper to digital. The young children, the way they are born into digital. And so it should be natural for them to say, your first day in school is with an iPad and that's your world, because that is the world they're going to live in going into the future. And those are the major transformational things that we've got to do. We don't have to talk much grammar. We know the justification, but what are we going to do that we can get our people to learn at scale? And like I said again, there's going to be a pull factor. We need to have a pull factor for these skills. And if the economy is not moving to demand these skills, then there's very little that we can do. And these are the things we need to focus on. But education, yes, no debate about that.
Very important, because even in the economic sustainability plan, we saw that the government wants to see how we can position ourselves to be efficient in the area of outsourcing skills, like you just rightly said, China and India are doing, even Indonesia. Now, let's look at this is our 60th anniversary. We're reflecting on it, and there's a desire for an economy that works for the citizens. Institutions play a very key role here in making this happen. And the president talked about today the need for entrenching the rule of law, ensuring that the institutions are firm in carrying out their roles. Looking at it, what additional things must happen for us to make this reality of shared prosperity and even the ambitious goal of lifting millions of people from poverty, 100 million people from poverty in the next decade?
Yes, I think clearly the whole concept of building institutions, and I think we've touched on it, it's about the rule of law. It's about setting up a system whereby people respect the law, and it is enforced in a way that we can all respond to it, so to speak. I think the thing about institutions is that we've always got to be very clear and be ready to reward the purpose of an institution. What do I mean by that? If the police, the judicial system, any institution that we build, especially if it's a government one, what have you done that would deserve my reward? That is, how are you performing? Are you doing the things that I expect you to do, such that I can reward you for it? And to try and find a way whereby these institutions themselves can be respected. Because if you don't respect people who are in an institution, which usually happens because you lose faith in them, you don't trust them, and you throw your hands up in the air and saying, all this is not working. And the reality is that, especially our judicial system, people worry a bit about it. And I have come to learn and understand a lot when I see how Donald Trump, the American president, is struggling to put in and elect another judge in the Supreme Court, because, again, there's a strong political influence there. So I was saying to myself, does it mean that, if the judicial system is not independent of political parties? It panders to whatever the party in power that has put it there to what they want, as opposed to sitting back and looking at raw judicial things in a very unbiased way. But again, the same thing happens here. You know, a state governor would appoint the judge, would appoint and drive the judicial system. And at the same time, we worry about the very people that lead us, and we worry about some of the things that they do, and we ask ourselves, how can we get justice where such judicial system is not really as independent as we think it is? And all these things tie in with being able to run a good and sound institution. Um, the police, I feel personally that they are not rewarded enough, and what you pay for is what you get. The kind of discipline and the kind of challenges that they face, sometimes we can be very, very unfair. And I'd always say again, with my principles of empathy, if it were you, what would you do to survive in the kind of situations that we find ourselves? So what I'm just going to say is just to agree with you that to build great institutions, the foundation is the rule of law. And how do we get this rule of law in place? Certainly, when we look at our highest courts, are they unbiased? Are they fair? Is there visible and agreeable integrity that we see? Do we see all these things? Because where it doesn't happen, then we mistrust the system, and therefore we ourselves begin to misbehave. I just wondered, it sounds ridiculous, but if you were to outsource the Supreme Court of Nigeria, whereby through the United Nations and some more global organization that you can trust, and say that anything that begins to touch on anything deserving to go to the Supreme Court will be dealt with by people that are totally unbiased, have no allegiance necessarily to anybody other than what the law says and their interpretation of it. And they will dish out judgment accordingly without bias, and such judgments will now be executed. So that way you might find that things that eventually get to that level of the legal system, will always be dealt with in a fair way without any bias. And sometimes we need to do ridiculous things to get results that's necessary. We know the issues, and we continue to fight against these things. But yes, some solutions are there. Sometimes it's a bit crazy, but if they serve their purpose and people are aligned, then yes, one can try. I don't know, I'm not a legal guy, but certainly the foundation of institutions is the rule of law. Yeah. It answers everything,
Definitely, and that even impacts the wider economy. But let's look at economic planning. We've had several, and based on your experience also in the NESG, you've seen various initiatives and plans come up. But there is this thought of, why don't we have a policy anchor? And that was a thought recently when we featured Dr. Benedict, and he cited, for example, Dubai is known for tourism in UAE, and that's was what has driven its economy and made it the place, the hub for tourism. Malaysia, known for palm oil and its derivatives. Indonesia also for palm oil, and it's doing massive things for those economies because they've been able to identify what is a policy anchor driving the economy and is attracting investment and deepening the industry. So looking at Nigeria, what would you, in your experience, advise to be our policy anchor? I know that people-oriented people, we have a huge opportunity in the creative industry, various sectors. Could we look at 2-3 sectors and say, we drive this as our anchor or focus on one? What are your thoughts around it?
Yeah, I have always, going back for years and years now, talked about the whole concept of, and I use the term value proposition, that what is the value proposition of a nation? You call it a policy anchor. And my own thoughts, maybe about 10, 15 years ago, which has been that far back, was what is, you call it policy anchor? What is our value proposition such that we can build our national competencies to align to it? If we take a quick short history, journey in history, Nigeria, in the early 60s, at the time of our independence now, our focus was clearly on agriculture. There was no debate about it. Our policy anchor was that we wanted to be an agro-driven nation, agricultural-driven nation, moving on to agro-processing. And you find out that as a result of that, there was a building, a construction, so to speak, of national competencies towards supporting this agricultural focus. You find that there were regional competencies, the North with their, their groundnut and cotton, the Southwest with the West with the cocoa, the Southwest with so Southeast with palm kernels, and each region had something to offer. And there was no problem about that because that was very important. But not only that, you found that the whole economy, the whole ecosystem supported it. Our railway system was designed to bring all this produce, okay, to Apapa and literally ship it out in those days, which was a wrong model, but that's what the colonial states, colonialists did, and so we didn't have a bit of much of a choice. But and then even you find a banking system. You had the National Bank, which was for the West. You had the African Continental Bank, which was for the East. You had the Bank of the North, which was for the North. And these banks, again, because the only game in town was about this agricultural processing, cooperative societies were set up. Our research institutes were all about agriculture, and each region had its own research institute. And you find that even in education, if you were to try and to go into university and study agricultural economics, agricultural engineering, agriculture generally, it was nothing that anybody looked down on because we were saying, look, that is the way the country was going and you would always find a job in that area. So what I'm saying is that the national competencies of the country, competencies being knowledge, capabilities, all those things and behavior was geared towards having an agro-driven economy. And that was moving very well to the extent that we now were having industrial estates, Ikeja industrial estate, Agbara industrial estate, even the north, the textile industries, everything was going well. And we were progressing gradually towards this situation. And the whole global or national ecosystem was focused on that. But lo and behold, yes, oil turned up and made it totally unnecessary for us to work hard anymore. So why the hell would we sweat so much when, for every barrel of oil we were selling, we were getting 10 times more and at half the time, the kind of revenue we're looking for. But obviously the mistake we made is that we never used that revenue to now continue to push the area in which we were having global competencies. And even there's nothing wrong with oil if we decide that oil was going to be our policy anchor. And therefore the whole ecosystem will drive around oil, in which by now we would have so many refineries, so many gas plants, so many ancillary products and services that saying that Nigeria is an oil production, oil management economy, and we would be the go-to country, certainly in this region, in anything concerning oil. But that again, we didn't do. We just got the oil and put it in. So to answer your question, yes, we need a policy anchor. And for me, if you say what would be that policy anchor, it would be agriculture and agro-processing, because it's going to employ a lot of people. And I know that, yes, digital economy is something that we should focus on, and maybe for me to be second or third, but agro-processing is important. Why? Because it manages our food security issue. We must pay attention to our food security all the time. We've got to feed the nation, feed the people. We've got to now begin to see how we can extend that into agro-processing that begins to engage the whole value chain. Because the minute you go into agro-processing, you're now going into industrialization, because you need the industrial plant and equipment to turn all these things we take out of the land, turn them into packaged products that end up in the shelves in the supermarkets. And hopefully, because of our strength, our capacity, we'll be able to push that across the region, and begin to make sense of the Africa free trade, Africa Continental trade agreement that we're all talking about now. But you see, we've been out of practice. We don't know how to do these things, because the only way you're good at something is if you're practicing at it every day. And we've not been doing that. But certainly agriculture for me is an important anchor. Another thing that I would have as an anchor, funny enough, would be education. I know it sounds funny, but if we decide, and I just wish we could decide that one of the things we want to do in this country is to make education one of our strong value proposition by saying that this country wants to create the most knowledgeable and educated people in the world. That is it. And we turn it such that education becomes a business. And there's nothing wrong with education becoming a business. Because if you look at the United States and other parts of the world, why, you look at the paper, then in 1 week, it has gone down now. But people from the UK, from India, all those countries, they're telling us, Nigerians, come and educate your children. And we're spending billions and billions of dollars every year educating our children abroad. It's got to be a business for them to be hustling you to do that. So I'm saying that if we, knowing that we have so many people, one of our major resources is people, and we've got to beneficiate our people by increasing their value. Therefore, education has got to be key. And it's got to be something, not only does it give value and help us to build our country, we can now export these products. And what are these products? Highly educated, talented, capable, competent people. They can go all over the world and they can begin to do the things that the Chinese, the Indians, the Singaporeans, and so on are doing to the Western world. At the moment, we're doing it a bit. You go to the United States, you find that consistently Nigerians are being acknowledged, in the UK acknowledged. Well, that's us without even trying. Imagine if we really, really tried. All those that have gone on a private platform, parents struggling and helping them through. Imagine if it was a national value proposition, a national policy, that our job in this country is to educate and provide the most knowledgeable and educated people in the world. And we focus on it. So there's total alignment. Every single thing we do is aligned towards it. You find that will be a major area. The rest, in terms of our proposal, for me, it's just the normal things that fall under this major thing. So for me, agro-processing, policy anchor without a doubt, and the whole value chain, which now helps us to get into production and all the what I call heavy metal type of thing to deliver on those things. And then education, which is our insurance, our pension program for this country by educating our children. Yes. And if we're doing that, also you find that all the stress and strain we're seeing across the country between the regions and people, we literally trying to fight each other, will just not happen. It just wouldn't happen because each region will be moving on according to its capability. And you find that the more people you have, it's not a liability, becomes an asset because each person you have is an educated person that's valuable to society.
Yeah, I mean, that's very clear and instructive. Agro-processing and education. Just in a minute, when you look at the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, it's going to be implemented from next year. And your capacity as chairman of Nigeria South Africa Chamber of Commerce, you've been engaging, discussing Nigeria's opportunities in trade. What is the key advantage for us, and what are those things you would like, particularly like the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, to take into cognizance as we begin to integrate into this new realm for agreements?
Yeah, I think clearly the Africa Continental Trade Agreement, Free Trade Agreement, it's the way to go. It's almost like I turn around and say COVID has been quite an interesting thing. As a result of that, there's this cry out. They say, to your tents, O Israel. When COVID hit, I realized that no matter how magnanimous any country wants to be, it's you go straight into this America first syndrome. It's every man for himself, and that's what happened significantly with the arrival, so to speak, of COVID, if I can say that, and everybody decided to protect themselves. And then you sort of realize how exposed Africa happened to be. And as a result, we are now on our own significantly, and we're saying, look, as an economy, a global and continental economy, how can we ensure that we protect ourselves? How can we ensure that we can, if this attitude continues the rest of the world, we can move on and survive? And yet, you know that the inter-African trade, I'm told, is worth about some $3 trillion a year or so. And at the moment, we are only trading at a level I think less than 20%.
Yes, less than
Of,
10%.
yeah, intra-African trade. And yet you look at the United States, which is about 35% or so. You look at the likes of Europe, which is about 70%. You look at Asia, that's about 60%. So clearly, the justification for that is it's obvious. But the beauty of that is that it then tells us that, okay, guys, here's a time, here's a market for you, which is your continent, in which you can now start adding value to your products and services and start to push these things out. I have had conversations with some individuals and some little companies here in Nigeria where I've said, oh, sit wearing the South African cap, oh, would you like to go and open a business or service or extend your service to a place like South Africa? And the answer has been no. And it's like not anything against South Africa, but it's just like I haven't dealt with Nigeria. I haven't even scratched Nigeria, let alone going out there. So I believe that it's just a continuum for us to sort of say that the free trade, the trade agreements with other African countries, the only advantage that it helps to bring in foreign exchange, it helps to create a larger market, and it just makes sense for us to do it. And I think it's just going to happen. Like I told you, Africa never participated in the globalization process. As a result, we lost out on that. We lost out on the opportunity to do things. But like you also mentioned, it's not always about heavy metal. It's about services as well. And I know we're doing very, very well. We had a webinar, the South African Chamber, just a few days ago, where we're looking at things about music, entertainment, and culture. And those things have to do with skills of the individual. Wherever it is about individual skills and capabilities, and you don't need government, Nigerians excel. It's almost like sometimes government gets in the way. But if I can do my business without government, people thrive. And that's what's happening to a lot of our skilled talents, from a fashion point of view, from your music point of view, and things of that nature. So yes, it's just that, yes, that is the way to go as far as the Africa Free Continental Trade Agreement is concerned. We don't have a choice but to go in that direction.
And now we're looking at legacies and lessons for future generations. I mean, through the Phillips Consulting Limited in Africa now, and your leadership strides, you have produced notable business leaders in Nigeria, which is notable. I mean, apart from this, you've contributed immensely to the national development. So what is the Nigeria of your dream, and also what are those legacies you like to leave behind?
The Nigeria of my dream, I will have to talk in broad terms, and you touched on some of the things we've touched on as well. It's almost trying to explain a country that would continue to reproduce itself. So I don't want to say, Nigeria, my dream is one that has infrastructure and all these specific things, but a country that is positioned to just continuously reproduce itself. So Nigeria, my dream is a country with extremely well educated and healthy and active people that have total respect for the law. Okay, so I'd love to wake up and find Nigeria with extremely educated people, extremely healthy, extremely active, and the active has to do with our entrepreneurial zeal. And in the process of doing all that, they just respect the rule of law. They behave themselves. So, because if those things are in place, your infrastructure and your rail and your power and your all those things, they will fit in. Because the entrepreneurial zeal is there for people to go out and do things. The education and background and upbringing is there for them to be able to succeed in doing those things. And in the process of doing it, they behave themselves by obeying the law, respecting each other, and appreciating the value that we all bring to the table. That's the kind of Nigeria that I would love to see. And you find that it revolves significantly around the attitude of people. And of course, to achieve this, we would expect to have a very, very powerful, strong, even can I say charismatic leadership that helps to convince people. You know, in the years that I've worked with various organizations and even looking at nations, the leader, we talk a lot about leadership. We talk about it so much that people are fed up and they need to say it's the leadership, they all switch off. Everybody switches off. But for me, it is about the leadership, but it's about the way the leader himself portrays himself, communicates, and sort of gets the people to rise up and move. Uh, an African American friend of mine always talks about the fact that if you're going to war, and in those days, you used to have a trumpeter, you know, the days of the horses. I have a trumpeter who will blow the trumpet, and that trumpet says, "Okay, everybody on your horses and your feet and your swords and shields, let's go and fight the enemy." And he said that there's no army that would be enthused if the trumpeter is not blowing that trumpet loud and clear, so that everybody is inspired. And I think that's what we all need in Nigeria. Somebody that actually helps to, we all know what we want to do. We all know, you know, you sit down, you talk to a sensible 14-year-old child, he will list out the things, he or she will list out the things that we need to sort out in this country. But the point is, how are we communicating it, and how are we getting somebody to stand up and blow that trumpet so loud and clear that, look, that's the direction we're going. Are you with me or not? And saying it every day consistently, giving feedback, guys. We said we're going to be at position 7. We're only at 6. Please, we got to move on. Don't let anybody disturb. Carrying everybody along, carrying the regions along, the governors, and everybody with one voice. Once the politics is over, we've selected who's going to lead. It's now a unity of purpose in the things that we need to do. And I think that's the other thing that I would require: a leader that can inspire, a leader that people would really follow, a charismatic leader. Because don't forget, the execution of the work it will happen. We've got loads of talent, skilled people. You just need somebody who's going to go out there and sing that loud song. And there's so many examples. You know, I always think of someone like Ronald Reagan. We always call him an actor. And Ronald Reagan did this so well. And I sort of exaggerate and say, Ronald Reagan will look at his cabinet and say, okay, guys, what do you want me to tell the people? What are we going to do? They say, okay, we want to do this, that, and that. Fine, leave it to me. He goes out there on the podium and he's inspiring people. This is what we've got to do based on what his cabinet of very competent, focused, and capable people have decided to do. So it's so strong. It's so important to hear the voice of leadership. In any family, you want to hear the father talking and inspiring the children and the wife, congratulating the wife for the work done, inspiring the children to do more, and showing great example in his own attitude and the way he treats people. In any family, in any organization, you want the CEO to be able to be inspiring, someone that you'll be proud enough to say, I'm working at Phillips, I'm working at Porsche, I'm working at this organization, and you're saying so proudly because you know the leadership is one that's encouraging you to do the same. And it goes on and on and on, right up to we get to the top of the pyramid as a nation. So those are my thoughts as far as my dream for Nigeria and what I expect going forward now that we're 60.
In terms of your legacy, and in time to your legacy, what is your word also to business leaders? Because you've evolved for about 2 decades and 8 years. I mean, there are moments that you face challenges, of course, Nigerian business go through a lot, but what are those words to business leaders, particularly in this challenging time? Even the president admitted globally and in Nigeria, we're facing economic crisis.
Yes, I think the things that you've got to, this is a season for pragmatism. You've got to be very, very pragmatic. There's some realities that face you that you've just got to deal with. Clarity about what you want to do. It's a tough one. Deciding that, okay, this is what we want to do. This is who we are. This is what we stand for. And therefore, let's go. People sometimes get too confused about the product or the service they offer and not understanding the purpose of their organization. You got to have clarity about the purpose of your organization. Mine is to educate people. Mine is to make life easy for people. Mine is to facilitate the ability for people to eat. Mine is to facilitate people to whatever it is. You've got to look at the wider purpose. How you do it will vary over the life of your organization. I know of companies whereby the person who started off was selling desk diaries and gifts, and today he's in a totally different sphere because what he's used is the competence that he has, and that competence always ties down to his purpose to be able to get organizations to do things in a particular way. So that's the first thing. You've got to have clarity about your purpose. You've got to be able to get people to trust you. Trust is important because what you say is what you say. Let people not say that, oh, look, what, don't trust him, or because the minute he turns around and you leave the room is something else. And that can be so discouraging. And you've got to be able to be true to your word and true to the commitments that you make and who you want to be and how you communicate with people. It's very, very important. And tied to that trust is issues about honesty and integrity. And we talk about it all the time. But the thing about leadership and people who lead is that people see you. You're so visible, you're in a fishbowl. And you might think that you're getting away with it, you're not. And you're sending a wrong message to those, because what it is that you'll accept, why should you fight anybody who does the same, in terms of behavior? And there are things also, I think one word that's been ringing around these days is that of meritocracy, putting the right people in the right job that allows your organization to survive. Of course, you've got to start off by recruiting the right people. You've got to start off by training them, by empowering. You've got to empower people with freedom to give value to the organization. I sit today as somebody that's approaching the age of 70, and I look back over the last nearly 30 years, and I look at the people that started some of the organizations that we're also very proud of today. GTB, Access Bank didn't exist, but the precursor to Access Bank, the Zenith Bank, um, uh, all the new generation banks, let me call it that way, that have transformed into different things. But when these organizations were started, the people who started them were in their 30s and late 30s. And today I look at them and say, oh, these young people, they're not young people. Even when I started my firm, I was at that stage. So again, it's recognizing that truly the next generation have got to be empowered to do the things that they can do. And let's not all feel that because we were the initial transformers, therefore nobody else coming behind us can do it. So we look around us today and we find those who are redefining the territory, they're all in the digital area. Unfortunately, again, you find they're all in that young, youthful age bracket where they have the enthusiasm and the energy. And the role that people like us have to play is to sort of share wisdom with them and advise as much as we can. But again, you find that energy is got to be captured. So again, I'm talking to a whole bunch of people that have different industries. Or the generic thing I can say is that yes, let people trust you in what you do. Try and be very pragmatic. If you've got to cut costs and do things that might seem a bit tight, think it through, because sometimes we have to pull back in order to be able to move forward. And in these tough times, pragmatism is very, very real. I look at our nation and the cost of governance in this country. It is just so phenomenal. It is just so ridiculous. And when you compare the amount that we pay our legislatures and government and so on, compared to other countries in the world that have much, 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 much higher level of economic activity, you're asking yourself, what's this about? And you can easily see portions of expenditure that we have, whereby it comes to 3 billion, 5 billion, 6 billion. And you say, this is every year. If I can put this 6 billion into building a school, I could put 6 billion into helping to put up another hospital. These are clear things that will offer greater value to society than what it is that is being offered to an individual, whilst that individual can still deliver his service and still live a good life on a reasonable level of income rather than an extravagant one. But legacy-wise, I can only share you those things that I've tried to use as my own pathway. Like I said, let's pick people that are deserving of the work they do. Let people trust you. These are the things that I can say, and obviously being very honest. Yeah.
been nice listening to Mr. Foluso. Phillips has been giving some very deep insights on his reflections at Nigeria at 60 and his experience and learning points to Nigerians at this point. So, sorry, there was a slight technical issue, but I think I was trying to hear your legacy. You talked about your legacy, Mr. Foluso Phillips.
Yeah.
So you can go on, yes.
Yes. I think I more or less, I think I've covered the things that
Okay.
I talk about. I think
Very good.
I'm beginning to repeat myself.
Thank you very, very much. It's been really nice having you, Mr. Foluso Phillips. It's always rare to have you. I mean, you had to put up your official wear just on your holiday, but at least you have the rest of your dates yourself. But we must appreciate you being a leader, exemplary leader in the country, contributing to the Phillips Consulting Limited, now PCL Africa, helping organizational transformation, people's skills and development. And like you said, a lot of organizations in Nigeria attest to the impact you've made in their activities, and also serving as the one-time chairman of Nigeria Economic Summit Group, helping to support policy development in the country, and also currently chairing the Nigeria South Africa Chamber of Commerce, helping Nigeria's interest in trade with South Africa, and of course, at the long run, improving our trade levels. But your thoughts and your particular big takeaways, the need for us to leverage on agro-processing and education as our policy anchors. You've given it that if we take just those two, there's a lot that we can derive in value, beneficiating our people and also our resources, and also the need for leaders in this time to drive the show. Clarity of purpose, integrity, those two, like you said, will really pay in challenging times like this. And with that, definitely, there's a lot to learn from. And of course, the values you've garnered over the years, and those are learning points. And definitely, a lot of more mentorship classes. A lot of young people will want to learn more from you. And definitely, I know you would make yourself available where that the demands, because in times like this, mentors and leaders like you are always those that can show that pathway from your experience and encourage the younger generation to say, if we did it, you can do it better. Thank you once again, Mr. Foluso Phillips, for the time. Chairman, Phillips Consulting Limited Africa, for sharing your reflections on Nigeria at 60, looking at corporate leadership and developing our nation. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Otto. It's been a pleasure being here. And ProShare has been, I want to encourage you to, as an organization, we like the things you do, we like the people you reach, we like the focus that you have. And it's always been a great pleasure to work with you. Yes. So I wish you and the rest of the crew and your leadership a wonderful, wonderful day for a start, because I know you're going to be busy today. Yes. But also hope that we would have cause to celebrate many, many more anniversaries of Nigeria as we move forward in the things that we want to do. So thank you very much, and all the best to everybody out there. Thank you.
Yes, and once again, happy anniversary to Phillips Consulting, which is tomorrow, and more great years ahead.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
And that'll be all for this special edition
of the Economy and Politics Show, where we had Mr. Foluso Phillips, Chairman, Phillips Consulting Limited Africa, giving his reflections on Nigeria at 60, looking at areas of corporate leadership and areas of development for our country and its policy integration. We hope to have subsequent conversations on this in future editions. Join us for our programs, of course, continue tomorrow, Economy and Politics Show, and of course, Market Review. You can follow our website, www.proshare.com, to watch our videos with our news reports and analysis. Send your comments today. I mean, it's the 60th anniversary of Nigeria, Diamond Jubilee. What are your thoughts about Nigeria? What are the things that can make us move forward and be better as a nation? We're ready to receive it and respond appropriately. Till we come your way again, thank you for watching. Have a nice day and a happy 60th anniversary once again to all Nigerians watching across the world. Stay safe.